Okay, next on the agenda is the proposed rule changes. So Bill, Ms. Smith, could you come forward and give us a rundown on that, please, sir?
Holy cow. Good morning, everybody. If you look in your board bill, it's starting on page 20. Here before you were some rules that were either changed or recommended by the disciplinary rules procedure committee and approved by the executive committee. And what I'm going to do for those of you, I assume everybody has had an opportunity to read this, but do some of it. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I'll just, okay, can you hear me now? Okay, let's see that. All right, well, I'll try to lean forward and speak loud about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in very briefly. If you've already read through this, I'm not going to read to you, but I'm just going to give you sort of a brief overview. And then the way that I propose these to be done is that rules 1.0, 1.2, 1.5, and 1.8 be voted on individually. And then the advertising rules, which is 7.1 through 7.3, which would modify and eliminate 7.4, 7.5. But would modify 7.1, 7.2, 7.3 do that as a slate, because they if you approve one, you don't approve the other, it doesn't work. So they have to have them all at one time. So anyway, the first rule, rule 1.1 terminology and definitions. And this proposed change adds a new definition of willful blindness in subsection DD at line 116. And willful blindness is also going to be included in the next rule change, which is the proposed change, which is rule 1.2. And rule 1.2 scope for representation and allocation of authority between the client and the lawyer. And also at the beginning of line 18, it's been rewritten to include the term willful blindness, which prohibits the lawyer from knowingly or with willful blindness to count for assist the client engaging in criminal or fraudulent conduct or activities. Rule 1.5 fees. This comes from an opinion from the Supreme Court that suggested the state bar take a look at arbitration clauses and fee agreements. And what the rules committee came up with is that this has certain consents and disclosures that have to be made if you're going to have arbitration of fee disputes in rule 1.5 fees. And then likewise in rule 1.8, conflict of interest prohibited transactions has the same types of informed consent and right if you're going to have a arbitration clause in your contract concerning malpractice claims. And then over to rules, the advertising rule starting at rule 7.1, communications concerning the lawyer services, which is false, misleading, or misleading truthful statements. And really what this rule is doing is it takes sort of a complex rule and simplifies it. And just basically, if you think about it from a First Amendment standpoint, if it's false or misleading, it's not protected. First Amendment protection lying to people. So that's basically what this rule is doing is just as if it's something that's false and misleading, or if it's a misleading truthful statement, that that would be a violation of these rules. As far as 7.2, communications concerning lawyer services. This thing it remains the rule 7.2, but it retains the current provision of the lawyer referral services and inter specialist. It also allows the lawyer to give normal gifts.
I think people who make referrals to the lawyer, like somebody's asked me about that. I said, if you want to thank somebody by giving them a bottle of wine for a referral, that's fine, as long as it didn't attach to a Maserati, then it's okay. And then 7.3, solicitation of clients. It still bans in-person solicitation, still retains the 30-day rule, so that we don't have people that are bombarding someone who experienced a tragedy right off the bat. within the, 30 days of the accident or disaster. Like I said, still bans in-person solicitation. Really what this does is this just tightens up the rules, makes them simpler and easier to read, and makes it where we have, I think, a better understanding by the membership. So that's what I have. I'll be glad to entertain any questions, but if you want to do it, I think we probably just should do it by motion and then discussion, if that's okay, Madam President.
Right. Is there a motion on the amendment to Rule 1.0 terminology and definitions? Is there a motion to approve it? Okay, is there okay, is there any discussion or any questions for Mr. Neesmith? No? Okay. Just put the poll, Jennifer. Okay, that's great. Let's close the poll, please. Okay. All right, thank y'all. Let's move on to Rule 1.2, scope of representation and allocations of authority between client and lawyer. Is there a motion to approve the amendment to that rule? Is there a second? Is there any discussion or any questions regarding that amendment? Okay.
We got a. Yes, this came from the ITILs committee. And so, and a matter of fact, Amanda Palmer, she's here somewhere and can probably give you the background, which would be probably a lot better than me trying to bumble through it. And she can tell you exactly. If I can get her to, yeah, please.
So the board has actually already voted on a rule change to this rule before, and we've already voted on adding language to incorporate a willful blindness definition to this particular rule. That was quite some time ago. After that was approved, there was some further discussion with the Supreme Court and also with the disciplinary rules committee about refining the particular language that we were going to use. I think if you go way back, the ITILs committee took this up in response to, or not in response, but it was, I think, in part kind of prompted by something that the ABA was also looking at and changing the model rules, and really just to provide clarity for lawyers so that we would all understand how our knowledge would be judged in regards to this particular rule. It's not changing the law or changing the rule, but really providing all of us some more guidance and clarity about what's going to be considered to be knowledge. And I think the ABA took this up in kind of response to some anti-money laundering regulations and laws that were being proposed at the federal level to make sure that lawyers didn't have to take on some extra burden or some kind of burden that would conflict with the other duties that we have to our clients. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, very much. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion or questions on this 1.2 amendment? No? Okay, may we have the poll, please? Okay. Looks like that passes. Thank y'all. Rule 1.5 fees. Do we have a motion to approve the amendment to Rule 1.5 regarding fees? Do we have a second? Do we have any discussion or any questions regarding that amendment? Okay, let's have a poll question, please. Okay, now we got our slide up there, so please vote on Rule 1.5. Okay, let's close it. Okay, looks like that passes. Thank you. And now we'll go back to 1.8.
Yeah, sorry. For the people on Zoom, I keep getting questions. Point Solutions is your application for the voting. There is a separate link for the voting. It will either be TT poll, or the web application. Once the poll is launched, it will give you a prompt for the voting there. It is not through Zoom voting. Thanks.
All right, are we going back with our 1.8? All right, is there a motion to approve 1.8, conflict of interest as amended? Is there a second? Discussion? None? Okay. So please vote on this one as well. Okay, let's close it. All right, looks like that passed. Thank y'all. And the last rules that we'll need to vote on, we're doing this as a slate. Is there a motion to approve of the proposed amendments to part 7 of the bar rules, amending rules 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3, and further deleting rules 7.4 and 7.5 as presented by Bill a few minutes ago? Is there a second? Are there questions, comments, discussion? Okay, so we're doing that as a slate. I can't see anything. I'm sorry.
I win all my cases. I win all my cases. I've never been to court, but I win all my cases. I'm sorry. It is, but it would be, we would consider it misleading because it makes the client think that you're a trial lawyer going to court and that you're always winning when you go to court, not that you just settle all your cases. That's just one example. Yeah. I've never lost a case, I guess is a better. Yeah, I've never lost a case. You've never been to trial. And you've never been to trial, but you just omit that little fact. That's, I mean, what it is, what you're saying is truthful, but you're just omitting some pertinent information.
Any other questions, discussion? No? Okay. We have the poll question. All right, we can close it, Jennifer. It's like gremlins in here. Okay, looks like that passed. Thank y'all very much. And thank you, Bill, for your hard work and your presentation on that. All right, the next item on the agenda are appointments to the Commission on Continuing Lawyer Competency, CCLC. And those two appointments are Jarvis Gresham and Stephen Tillman. I know Javaris is here, so I can't see anything with these lights in my eyes, but would you stand up? There you are. Okay. There's one of our appointees, and I believe that Stephen is attending by Zoom. So anyway, thank y'all very much. We need to have a motion, I believe. I don't think we do, but we're going to have one. A motion to approve those appointments. Is there a second? Okay. Is there any discussion? No. All right, we have a poll question, please. Okay, that's great. Let's close it. Okay, all right. All right, Javaris, you almost got unanimous. Close. Okay. Thank you all very much, and thank you all for agreeing to serve. All right, the next item on the agenda are the nominations of the ABA delegates. And Rob Rothman was not able to be here, so I'm going to ask Linda Klein to come forward to make the nominations. Of course, y'all all know Linda as a past president of the State Bar of Georgia, as well as a past president of the ABA.
Good morning. So nominations are an entertaining time. I remember George Mundy nominating me and embarrassing me. Good thing my mother wasn't there. But all of your constituents know and appreciate all the work that you do for access and fairness to justice in our state. It's very important. And the officer nominations today bring me a special point of pride. I looked into my crystal ball this morning and I see that my law partner, Ivy Cadle, a great lawyer, a servant leader, is going to have his name placed in nomination for president-elect. So I'm very excited about that. So thank you for letting me be here this morning. But that's not what I bring to you this morning right now. And that is after publication of the notice of vacancies in the Bar Journal, I am privileged to place a nomination for ABA delegates to be voted on with your ballots that go with the State Bar officer ballots. For post 2, S. Lester Tate of Cartersville. For post 4, Paula Frederick of Atlanta. And post 6 will be held by our immediate past president at the time, which will be Sally. With that, I need a second. I think we're concluded. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think we have a poll question. All right, if y'all place a vote, that'd be great. Please vote for me. You're 112. That's great. Okay. Thank you very much. Looks like that passes. Those nominations pass. The next nominations we have are for the officers. And the first nominations we'll hear are for any candidates for Secretary of the State Bar of Georgia. Are there any nominations for Secretary of the State Bar of Georgia? I see Robert Ingram coming.
Good morning. Madam President, I rise this morning to speak about a gifted man from Marietta whose proven leadership skills have inspired all who know him. He is a Cobb County hometown hero who is loved and adored, one who is always willing to step forward and utilize his considerable talent to help others, one who has managed to maintain his humility despite enormous financial success. But enough about former Braves Atlanta shortstop Dansby Swanson, who left us for the Chicago Cubs. I'm here to talk about my friend Bill Gentry. It's been a minute since I had the pleasure to speak to this group. When I last addressed the Board of Governors, it occurred to me that Damon Elmore was the Wild D president and had a full head of hair, much like Dansby Swanson. I do hereby nominate Bill Gentry as State Bar Secretary. I'm truly delighted and honored to do so. Like Dansby, Bill is a hometown hero in Marietta and Cobb County and has deep roots there. And actually, everything I said about Dansby really does apply to Bill. Bill is an outstanding lawyer who graduated from a law school up in Athens, Georgia, that recently won back-to-back national championships. Y'all may have heard about it. Go Dogs. And the students there had the foresight to elect Bill as the president of the Student Bar Association. Bill has distinguished himself as one of those lawyers who recognizes the importance of our profession, and he's willing to donate and spend his considerable time and talent to improve it. His record of service includes a decade on this Board of Governors, service on the executive committee, service on dozens of committees in the Cobb Bar, the State Bar, the Cobb Bar Board of Trustees, and we elected him as president of the Cobb Bar. He has also been active in the community service with his church and civic groups. And obviously, I could talk about Bill's resume for a while, but the lawyers of Cobb County have repeatedly elected Bill as one of our Board of Governors, hoping he could demonstrate to Georgia lawyers that Cobb County has more to offer than you saw with myself and Daryl Sutton during our leadership of the State Bar. We recognize the Board of Governors is loaded with talented lawyers and judges. I'm seeing them all over the room. But we believe it's time to, and the Cobb lawyers believe it's time to put forward a lawyer to serve as State Bar officer who can cause the shortcomings of myself and Daryl Sutton to fade away forever. We remain convinced that Bill has the work ethic and leadership skills to make a great secretary, and I'm authorized to say Daryl Sutton joins me in endorsing Bill's candidacy for State Bar Secretary. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you, Past President Ingram. Is there a second? I see Sherry Edenfield coming.
Good morning. I rise to second the nomination of Bill Gentry for Secretary of the State Bar of Georgia. And it's my honor to do so. The last time I was here in front of the body, speaking to everyone at one time, I was an officer on the dais in 2016, and I had never been on a Zoom. So things have changed. In fact, in 2016, you know, I'd never taken a deposition by Zoom, never appeared in a hearing by Zoom. And as everyone knows, I think we've got people here attending the meeting today by Zoom, it's virtually. And that's just one example of how things have changed. Our meeting back in the fall was an all virtual meeting. And I'm reminded, and I think I told someone the other day, that the only thing that stays the same and that never changes is that everything changes. And at first I hate to say that, but and I thought about it and I was like, you know, Sherry, that's really not right, because there's one thing, or at least one thing, that doesn't change. And the one thing that doesn't change and never changes is that an August body such as ours and 50,000 young lawyers, or not all young at heart, and older lawyers, we all require and need strong leadership. And we have to take the leaders that we develop and put them where we need them the most. And I'm here to tell you today that Bill Gentry is exactly the leader that we need at the time that we need it. There has never been a more important time. And Bill, I can't see anything either. Bill, where are you? Oh, there you are. There's my friend Bill. I'll tell you, I met Bill when I became a young lawyer officer and got to know him and his wife, Sherry, when I started getting involved. And they've been great friends to me. And they've been great friends and mentors to a number of other people. I will also tell you that it's kind of ironic that Bill, his wife is named Sherry. My name, of course, is Sherry. My husband's name is Bill. So we have a lot in common from the get-go. But even more so, what I'll say is he is a lawyer who knows how to get things done. But at the same time, he's a lawyer who can put people in where they, in my opinion, and what I've seen him do, is put people where they excel and help other people and do it the best. An example of that is the work he's done, which has largely been quiet, in leading the Senior Lawyers Committee and helping lawyers transition out of the practice of law with respect and dignity, and also helping the clients at the same time. I don't know that that's widely known, but he is just that kind of a leader. He doesn't seek a lot of public praise, but he tries to put the resources where they'll best work. So I tell you that so that you know, in addition to what Robert Ingram said, but he is a Cobb County lawyer, but he does have Georgia roots from all over. In fact, he is the son of a lawyer, and his father is from Dodge County, where they have the motto, vote early and vote often. But I think that's actually changed. So I tell you, it kills me to not say that when every time I hear vote early or early voting, I want to say and vote often, because that was what Dr. Bullock said in our Southern Politics class. But no, Dodge County, Eastman, Georgia, that is where his roots are from. His mother is from Dublin, Georgia, if you know where that is. It's the crossroads of the world. And he has family from all over, and he knows what it's like to be a small business leader or small business owner and a small firm practitioner, as well as a firm practitioner in a larger firm. He knows what it's like. He's been in the trenches. And to me, he sort of exemplifies what I would say Philippians chapter 2, verse 3-4 states, which is, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of others. So it is my great honor to nominate my friend, Bill Gentry, or to second the nomination of my friend, Bill Gentry, the Secretary of the State Bar of Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Are there any other nominations for Secretary of the State Bar of Georgia? No? Okay. We will go on to Treasurer. Are there any nominations for Treasurer? I see Dax Lopez.
Morning, all. Madam President, I rise today to nominate my good friend, Chris Twyman. Y'all know I don't do long speeches. And I thought that when I retired from the bench and I lost all my honor, I thought I also retired from doing this. But it's been 3 years since COVID and my last performance. As some of y'all might recall, I did Moana 3 years ago, Hamilton a few years before that. And so I decided that since we were all in COVID for 3 years, I should at least try to think of something to do for Chris. And I tell you, when Chris called, he only gave me 2 days notice. So I was like, oh, that's a short period of time. So I said, all right, well, Chris, even though right now Will Smith is not very popular, Chris just has this swagger about him, and he's got this smile that kind of reminds me of the Fresh Prince a little bit. So here we go. This is my nomination of my good friend, Chris Twyman. Now, this is the story all about how Chris Twyman's life turned upside down. And I'd like to take a minute and just sit right there, and I'll tell you how Chris became the treasurer with flair. It was Rome, Georgia, born and raised in the library. Chris spent most of his days reading and writing, researching and chilling, shooting some b-ball outside of the school. When he got all A's and all was good, he got a scholarship to Georgetown in the DC hood, found a calling in the law, and his mom got proud. She says, you're moving up to Athens. Nothing's going to stop you now. He graduated a dog in just 3 years. In the courtroom, he was fresh and extremely fierce. If anything, I could say that this kid is rare, but never forget he's got real bar flair. He moved quickly up the Georgia bar, but I'll tell you, he had to work hard to make it this far. Time to look at his kingdom. He is finally there to sit on the dais as the treasurer with flair. Thank y'all.
Okay, sorry, Rebecca, you got to follow that.
Okay, really not fair, Chris Twyman. Okay, this is 3 pages of Chris Twyman's bio. It is chock full of, oh my gosh, leadership. You could go on and on and on about Chris Twyman and everything about him that screams leadership. But I want to talk about Chris Twyman as the leader that I know. Professionally, the only time I've ever dealt with Chris Twyman was on a case that we had. It was a vehicular homicide in my office, and it was particularly gruesome. It was horrible. And Chris was representing the defendant. And our victims were just having such a hard time. They were having a hard time every time we try to talk to them about what we were going to offer in a plea agreement. And the biggest problem they had, the biggest hurdle was, why hasn't he said, I'm sorry? And you're trying to explain to your victims, well, he can't. Because litigation was finished, but he could not say, I'm so sorry. And every single one of us in this room knows why. But my chief assistant, who was in charge of that case, and Chris Twyman got together and made a gentlemanly agreement that we were going to bring everyone together in a conference room, and nothing that was said in that conference room was ever going outside the walls of that conference room. And it took a lot of faith, and it took a lot of professionalism on Chris's part, and it was a very brave move. But when we got everyone together, Chris's client was finally able to say, I'm sorry, because apparently he was gutted by the whole situation. It was horrible, because when you're talking about a misdemeanor vehicular homicide, it's that someone committed a minor traffic offense that resulted in a death. And so this poor man had several deaths on his hands. And he was able to say, I'm sorry. The victim's family was able to ask all those questions that they really needed to ask. And there were a lot of tears, there was a lot of hugging, and a whole lot of healing. And right after that, he entered his plea, and everyone was in a situation where everyone was comfortable, and we really everybody was able to move on from that experience. And so when I talk about us and professionalism, I think of Chris Twyman. I don't think I've ever been in a more profound meeting in my career. And when I think about who I would want leading us in this state bar and this year as treasurer, Chris Twyman is someone I gladly agreed to second a nomination for, even if he stuck me behind Dax Lopez.
Thank you, Rebecca. Are there any other nominations for treasurer? Okay, how about a nomination for president-elect? I see Jerry Cadle.
I'm here because I'm the only person I could talk into doing this today. All right. Madam President, members of the Board of Governors, and guests, it is my honor to nominate my son, Ivy N. Cadle, as president-elect of the State Bar of Georgia. In addition to being an attorney, Ivy is also a certified public accountant. So rest assured, your current treasurer is well qualified to give his reports. Of course, a good CPA can also hide things from you. Okay. Well, he did not know it at the time, but Ivy was destined to be an attorney from birth. He was born exactly 3 years from the day I was sworn into the bar. Further evidence of this destiny is Ivy's initials are INC. His wife Leslie's initials are LLC. And we can vouch that Leslie is not a limited liability, but Paul was Ivy's mother tell you he was when he was growing up. Okay. Ivy's first job when he was in high school and college was an EMT. So if he decides to chase ambulances, he has an inside track. Right? As a matter of fact, he did get that opportunity one time. When he was an EMT, he was a third man on an ambulance crew that responded to a gunshot victim in one of Swainsboro's finer neighborhoods at 2 o'clock in the morning. And the ambulance driver thought Ivy was in the back. The EMT in the back thought Ivy was in the front. So as the ambulance departed the scene, Ivy had to run the ambulance down and bang on the back door to get in. So he's probably the only one in the room that's chased an ambulance and actually caught him. So Ivy's resume is quite long, so I won't read you the whole thing, but here are the highlights. Ivy thought he wanted to pursue a medical career, so he has an associate science degree from East Georgia State College, a biology degree from the University of Georgia, and he finally saw the light and got a Master of Accountancy degree from the University of Georgia. After working as an auditor for a large accounting firm, he went on to his law degree at Mercer University's Walter F. George School of Law. He was the only person in his 10-year high school reunion who was still in college. But, yeah. Ivy has been an active member of the bar since he was admitted in 2007. He is a past president of both the Macon YOD and the Macon Bar Association. He's a graduate and former co-chair of the Young Lawyers Division Leadership Academy and served on the YOD Board of Directors. He is past president of the eminent domain section of the bar, and he has served on numerous committees, giving him a solid understanding of the inner workings of the bar. The Macon Judicial Circuit elected Ivy to the Board of Governors in 2018, and y'all had to put up with him since that time. Ivy became a member of the Executive Committee in 2019, was elected secretary of this esteemed group in 2021, and all this service to our state bar has given Ivy insight into the operations, needs, and concerns of this organization. Ivy takes great pride in serving this organization and the legal profession. His positive energy and can-do attitude make him an excellent choice for president-elect. Ivy will be as enthusiastic representing the state bar as he is in representing his clients. Therefore, it is my honor and privilege to nominate my son, Ivy Neal Cadle, as president-elect of the Georgia Bar Association.
That was great. Thank you, Jerry. I see Judge Kraus coming.
I'm pretty loud, so I've been told. Also, I have a PowerPoint because I don't know how to give a speech without one, but I promise it's still pretty quick. Hopefully it's going to come up in just 1 second. But while I'm waiting for it to pop up, I will say that, Madam President, I rise, and am very excited to have the honor of seconding Ivy, my friend, Ivy Cadle's nomination for president-elect. Seriously, I can't do this without my PowerPoint, y'all. It's a little sad. There we go. Okay, so when I first found out that I had to give this speech, the first thing I realized is that I had to follow Ivy's dad, which nobody really wants because he's going to tell you how great Ivy was. So I decided I should go in a slightly different direction. So I had to do some research. So I did, like anybody would start with a presentation, I started by Googling Ivy, right? So when I Googled Ivy, what I learned is that Ivy, where am I pointing? Ivy is a business management software for designers. Ivy is a leadership community for entrepreneurs and innovative professionals. Ivy is, of course, a sports bar in Buckhead. Of course, Ivy is a climbing vine of the genus Hedera, native to Southern Europe, Asia, and Northwestern Africa. For real, y'all, my favorite thing that I learned about Ivy when I Googled it is Taylor Swift has a song called Ivy. And I don't want to start any rumors, but we all know how Taylor Swift loves to write songs about her ex-boyfriend. So I thought perhaps I needed to refine my research a slight bit. So I Googled Ivy Cadle. And when I Googled Ivy Cadle, what I found out is that, according to the internet, Ivy Cadle is apparently Superman. So I thought, is Ivy a superhero? I mean, like, what really makes a superhero anyway? So according to the internet, a superhero must have a tragic background. A superhero must have flaws to overcome. A superhero must have a trusted sidekick. A superhero must have a unique and distinguishing characteristic. A superhero must have a villain. And a superhero must have one or more superpowers. So let's see if Ivy meets these criteria. tragic backgrounds? Well, I think we can say that Ivy had a lot to overcome in his growing up years. A flaw to overcome. That haircut and whatever's happened. A trusted sidekick, of course. And please, Leslie, more Captain Anthony, really, right there. A unique and distinguishing characteristic. I mean, come on, really? What is possibly distinguishing about Ivy that anybody in this room could tell you? Of course, it's that laugh. That singular Ivy laugh that makes anything he's laughing at that much funnier. And let's see, a villain. Does Ivy have a villain? Well, for those of you who know Ivy, you might have your own opinions about what who his villain might be, but I'm going to go with stealth. Now, don't let that sweet face fool you. She has been known to steal Kansas City steaks. She has also been known to engage in all sorts of mischief that requires superhero levels of patience. And finally, does Ivy have a superpower? Well, he can fly, of course. And he's obviously very smart. He's one of the few lawyers I know who didn't just go to law school. He really did also go to math school. But I think that Ivy's superpower really relates back to his name. You see, because in ancient traditions, Ivy symbolized fidelity, steadfastness, and trustworthiness. And it's those qualities more than any other, his commitment and faithfulness to the betterment of our profession, that make him a superhero in my book, and it make me honored to second his nomination for president-elect of the Georgia State Bar.
That was wonderful. Well done. Thank you. Are there any other nominations after that for president-elect? I thought not. Okay. Thanks to all of y'all who did such a great job with those nominations, and thanks to all those who are willing to serve in these officer positions. So let's give them a round of applause. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Advisory Committee on Legislation, and it is some proposals for us taking some proactive measures on some new legislative proposals. Andy, would you come forward and give us that presentation, please, sir?
Good morning, Madam President, Justice of the Supreme Court, Judges of the Court of Appeals, Board of Governors, members, guests, and fellow bulldogs. I come this morning to make the presentation from our committee. We last met August 30 of last year. I'll take that back. We met December the 7th. Prior to that, we met August 30 of 2022. We have 5 proposals this morning. The first one hopefully will be very easy. It is support for a resolution of the General Assembly recognizing April 2023 as Legal Professionalism Month. The Professionalism Committee brought this resolution to us and asked the committee to approve it. We approved it with the Keller vote, and then we also approved it to make a recommendation. And so, Madam President, I would, on behalf of the committee, make the recommendation that we support the resolution to the General Assembly for the month of April being Legal Professionalism Month.
All right, let me just, can we put up the first poll question, I think, Jennifer? Okay. So as you all will recall, when we do anything on legislation, we take 2 votes on every proposal. The first vote is on germaneness, and we can only take a position on a proposal on the merits if the proposal is germane to the scope and the purposes of the bar. So for that purpose, we usually use the Keller case to determine germaneness. It says that matters have to either be related to regulation, like regulating the profession, or improving the quality of legal services available to the people of Georgia. We also have a rule in Georgia that sets out our purposes to foster the principles of duty and service to the public, to improve the administration of justice, and to advance the science of law. So that's the first inquiry. Are all these proposals that we're fixing to vote on, do they comply with that? So the first one we'll do is I'll ask for a motion on the germaneness of this first proposal regarding April being the professionalism month. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Okay, so let's vote on the germaneness regarding the professionalism legislation. That's great. Okay, that passes the germaneness test. So now we'll move on to a vote on the merits. Do we have a motion to approve the ACL's recommendation to support a resolution for the General Assembly recognizing April 2023 as Legal Professionalism Month, as presented by Andy just a minute ago? Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Okay, let's have a poll question, please. Okay, let's close it. Okay, that passes. Very good. Thank y'all. All right, Andy, next item.
The next matter is support for the FY 2024 Judicial Council budget request of $800,000 to fund the Georgia Resource Center. This was presented by the Indigent Defense on behalf of the Indigent Defense Committee. The Georgia Resource Center was initially started by bar members, law schools, and other shareholders. Georgia and Alabama are presently the only states that don't provide counsel in post-conviction proceedings. So the proposal was, or is, to request the traditional state appropriation of $800,000 to the Judicial Council Administrative Office of the Courts to fund the Georgia Appellate Practice and Education Resource Center. And the State Bar has supported the Resource Center's appropriation for 33 years. And so, Madam President, we would recommend that this proceed with the Keller vote as well as being approved.
Is there a motion that the proposed legislation is germane to the purposes of the State Bar of Georgia? Is there a second? Is there any discussion? No? May we have the poll, please, Jennifer? Let's close it. Okay, that passes. Thank y'all. Is there a motion to approve the ACL's recommendation for support for the Judicial Council's budget request for fiscal year 2024 to continue the funding for the Georgia Resource Center as just presented by Andy? Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Okay, may we have the poll, please? Okay. All right, looks like that passes. Thank you all very much. Andy, next item.
Madam President, the next item is the support for amending OCGA 44-2-18, which is the savings statute correction. This was presented by Matt Mashburn and others on behalf of the real property law section. For many years in Georgia, you could attest or acknowledge a deed to execute it. And then in 2015, the General Assembly removed that ability to acknowledge a deed. 11th Circuit case In re Lindstrom held that the clause in the savings statute, that particular statute 44-2-18, affected the recording statute 44-2-15, and it could not be used in connection with those deeds, even though they were properly witnessed and contained an acknowledgement rather than any defective attestation. So this proposed amendment would allow that if you have an attestation or an acknowledgement, it can be cured. And on behalf of the committee, we would recommend that Board of Governors approve the Keller vote as well as the support for amending OCGA 44-2-18, the savings statute correction.
Right. Is there a motion that this amendment recommendation for this amendment to 44-2-18 is germane to the purposes of the State Bar of Georgia? Is there a second? All right, may we have the poll, Jennifer? Or is there a discussion? Sorry. Okay. Okay, that passes as well. Thank y'all. Now we'll need to vote on the merits. Is there a motion to approve the ACL's recommendation to amend OCGA section 44-2-18 as presented by Andy? You? Okay, is there a second? Okay, is there any discussion? No. Okay, may we have the poll? Okay, let's close it. All right, looks like that passes. Thank y'all. Andy, number 4 on the agenda.
Next is the Uniform Unsworn Declarations Act. On behalf of the International Trade and Legal Services Committee, Glenn Hendricks presented, and there has been subsequent discussions and emails with the real estate section, and I believe that there is support from that section as well. This was presented as allowing where federal law allows unsworn declarations to be used in lieu of notarized affidavits for litigants and witnesses in case. And the Uniform Law Commission came up with a uniform law that mirrors the aspect of the federal statute, so it could be adopted among states. The proposal was advocated by the Atlanta International Arbitration Society and asked the State Bar support. And it is to allow the Uniform Unsworn Declarations Act and to be adopted. And it is asked that it be limited to court, administrative, or judicial matters where it would not affect recordings of deeds. And so that is the proposal coming from those two, and it passed with the Keller vote and also passed with Merritt's vote before the committee, and therefore we would make the recommendation that it proceed with recommendation from the Board of Governors.
All right. Is there a motion that this International Trade and Legal Services Committee suggestion to support the Uniform Unsworn Declaration Act is germane to the purpose of the State Bar of Georgia? Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Okay.
Yes, that's my understanding. That's and there were specifically this past week with the real estate section going back and forth, making sure that it was clear that it didn't affect the real estate matters, didn't affect deeds. that it was limited to court proceedings, administrative and hearing proceedings.
My name is Rebecca Kolb, and I'm actually here. I was a large part of what was for bringing this before the ITLS. I'm with the Atlanta International Arbitration Society. The entire purpose of the bill was exactly what you're saying. It's to bring it in line with the federal practice of not having to have a notary for any sworn declaration in court. It also includes, as Mr. Davis said, the arbitral and administrative proceedings as well. And it's just removing the requirement to have a notary. You sign under penalty of perjury, and the criminal law has been amended to specifically include this type of declaration as being included within the definition of the crime of perjury. And I'm happy to answer any other questions on this law or on this proposed law.
All right, thank you. We have the germaneness poll question. All right, let's close it. All right, that passes the Keller germaneness vote. So now we'll go on and I'll ask if there is a motion to approve the ACL's recommendation for support to the Uniform Unsworn Declaration Act as presented. Okay. Is there a second to the yes? Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, let's vote. Y'all are good, just getting bored, that's all. Okay, let's shut it. Okay, that passed. Thank y'all. All right, last one, Andy.
And coming from the fiduciary law section, it was requested that we approve support for state appropriations for the Georgia Heirs Property Program. Nick Jurek presented the proposal on behalf of the fiduciary law section. And the Georgia Heirs Property Law Center heirs property is home or land that is passed from generation to generation in such a way that multiple individuals own a piece of real estate. And it creates an unstable form of ownership. And that's limited to, as many of you may be aware, for individuals to make improvements, to manage farm and timberland, to build generational wealth because the family cannot afford financing or rehabilitation programs. And so Representative Penny Houston is asking for $300,000 to be appropriated to the Department of Community Affairs to address these legal issues with heirs property in areas that were affected by Hurricane Michael and Hurricane Ian in Georgia, and so that homeowners could access federal disaster relief funds. And so this was asked that we support that for the state appropriations request. It met the Keller vote and also was passed from our committee on the merits, and therefore the committee would seek the support of the Board of Governors for this state appropriations for the Georgia Heirs Property Program.
Okay, is there a motion that the proposed legislation from the fiduciary law section is germane to the purposes of the State Bar of Georgia? Is there a second? Any discussion? Okay, Jennifer? Okay. All right, that passes. Thank you. Last thing on this part of the agenda, is there a motion to approve the recommendation to support the funding for the Georgia Heirs Property Program as presented? Is there a second? Okay, is there any discussion? I can't see who it is. Is it Donna? Okay. Oh, okay. These lights are awful. I can see nothing. Okay, I think we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I don't think so. All right, can we put the poll question, please? All right, that passes. Thank you. And thank you, Andy, to you and your committee. I know y'all work real hard to bring those to us. So appreciate that, all
Thank
that
you,
hard
Madam
work.
President, and our committee could not do what we do without the support from all of the staff at the State Bar, and especially Christine Butcher Hayes. And I just want to thank her for all her hard work in making our job easy. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that lovely introduction, here comes Christine Busher Hayes to give us a legislative update.
Thank you, Andy. That was very kind of you. Good morning, everyone. So this week has been a very eventful one down at the state capitol. In the world of state politics, the General Assembly began its 40-day session on Monday, as they are constitutionally required to do on the second Monday of January. And then a bunch of them switched time zones for basically 12 hours, celebrated the Dogs winning a national championship, and then flew back. And they had day 2 on Wednesday. The governor was sworn in, as well as the other constitutional officers on Thursday, and they had day 4 of the legislature on Friday. So this is a unique year because they've set the legislative calendar already. They did so on day 1. And so we will have crossover day the first week of March, and then Sine Die is set for March 29th. So it's nice for those that spend a lot of time down at the Capitol this time of year to know when you're going to be out of there. So change is going to be very constant down at under the Gold Dome this year. After Speaker Ralston stepped down from his role and then passed away shortly after, it was a shock to a lot of people. And the House will really have to adjust after 12 years of his steady-handed leadership. They did finalize the election of the new speaker on Monday, and that is Speaker John Burns from Newington, Georgia, down in Effingham County. And we look forward to working with him during the upcoming session and in the future. The House has a new majority leader in Representative Chuck Efstration. I'm sure many of you remember Representative Efstration, who is a fellow member of the bar from Gwinnett County and the outgoing House Judiciary Chair. So we're excited to see him in that new leadership role and continue to work with him. We do not know who the new House Judiciary Chair will be. We've heard that they're going to start naming all of the chairmanships and the committee assignments next week in the House. And so we'll look forward to that and the mix up with all these new members that have come in to see who is going to be on those House committees. In addition to the fact that the House Appropriations Committee, which as many of you know, is where the budget starts in the legislative process, has a new chair, and that's Matt Hatchett. So he is going to get the first crack of the state budget. And in addition to it'll be a new role for him and a big undertaking, that's for sure. Before I go into the Senate leadership, I did want to mention that we have 10 new lawyers in the House and 2 new lawyers in the Senate. So that's a total of 26 lawyers that we have in the House, and which is a net gain of 2. So that was a positive thing. I mean, a number of you know that, yeah. We've been bleeding lawyers for years, and I'm sure you've heard me beat a dead horse up here. I know a number of other people saying we need more lawyers in the legislature. So it was positive to see that we have a gain in the House. There are 2 lawyers in the Senate, and that number remains unchanged. The Senate has named its committees, and the House Judiciary or the Senate Judiciary Committee, I believe, has a number of non-lawyers on it now, just because of the balance in that chamber of the lack of lawyers. So again, beat that dead horse, please, if you know anyone that's willing to, run in the future or is interested in public service, coax them along, because we definitely need the help from the legal profession down at the Capitol. On the Senate side, we have a new Lieutenant Governor in Burt Jones and a new Senate Pro Tem, Senator John Kennedy, who is also a member of this body, but I do not think is here today, but we are excited to see him in that leadership role and to continue to work with him. In terms of what to expect right now, the one thing that we really do know on the legislative or the policy front is that state revenues are up. And so, there's a lot of big budget items that I'm sure you're seeing in the press right now. There's going to be a $2,000 raise for state employees, a $500 property tax rebate for Georgia property owners, and a $250 income tax refund. So, that's exciting for everyone. On the legislative front, right now, not much has been filed. But we know that legislators are slow out the gate to get things through legislative council and get them filed. And we expect there will be plenty to review once the first week of February rolls around. So please keep your eye out for those legislative updates we send out, and reach out if you need anything from me or any of the legislative team, which is, as in past years, Rusty Sewell, Mark Middleton, and Roy Robinson. So thank you very much for your support, and fingers crossed for a smooth legislative session.
I'd also like to give let us, even if he's not here, maybe he's on Zoom, to give a round of applause to John Kennedy. That's a big deal, that position that he got appointed to. So. Good job, John. All right. Greetings from the president. Thank you all thanks to the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, and the members of the Board of Governors for being with us here this morning. When I started off in June, thinking about kind of what I was hoping might happen this year, I thought of two things, nothing groundbreaking or, no big, huge agenda items, but I wanted to continue the improvement that had already been happening with CLE and the ICLE department specifically. And I also wanted to emphasize professionalism. I believe that that's not a problem for many lawyers, but I just think it never hurts to remind ourselves that that is our foremost goal. And I think probably one of the most important things about being a lawyer, and one of the most important things that sets lawyers apart from other professionals. So in order to promote those kind of two things that I identified, a couple of things have been happening. One of the things that's going to happen is that in conjunction with CJCP on February 22nd, we will have a seminar at the State Bar headquarters, and it's really going to be fantastic. Carlisa's and the CLE team have done a really, really good job of putting together a wonderful group of speakers. We're going to have some of the justices join us, and also some people like John Salmon and others who were fundamental in kind of the beginning of the growth and the onset of making professionalism more of a highlight and more of an important thing in all of our lives. So I hope you will take time to join us. That will be accompanied by like a little happy hour and some hors d'oeuvres afterwards. So I hope we can all gather together and be professional and enjoy the seminar. So that's one thing. Also some talking around about professionalism. We've also I've had the opportunity to do that with several groups, and we'll be giving a presentation to the Lawyers Club in March on that. So I know that y'all are doing your part, and I hope you will continue to do that, to talk it up and make that happen. The other thing was CLE, and that progress and improvement had begun long before I started talking about it, and it continues to do so. I first want to say that at 9:15 this morning, y'all received an email from me because I'm that good. I was sitting right here. And it's a survey about CLE. So I'm hopeful that at least the people that are here today will answer the survey. So please look at your email. If your State Bar stuff goes into junk, shame on you. But if it does, please check there and fill out that survey. It's 10 very short questions. The first couple are demographics, and then the others are suggestions and kind of your thoughts on CLE. So we're very interested in that information, and I really ask you to do that and to fill that out. And regarding that survey, although it looks like 10 simple questions that were probably thrown together, that's not at all how it came about. It was a long, arduous process to get that written and edited and in the right format. And I wanted to thank Julia Neighbors, Megan Jones, Becky Hall, Dee Dee Worley, Sarah Cool, and of course Damon for his steady leadership and oversight in getting that survey put together. So please reward their hard work by taking it and asking others that you come in contact with to take it as well. So the other thing on CLE is I hope you've noticed that the programming continues to be expanded and more available to everyone. And of course, with the advent of the removal of the requirement for in-person, any in-person CLE, you can do it all on the computer now. And I hope that that has brought some ease into y'all's lives as well on the CLE front. The other matter on CLE is the Lawyer Competency Task Force that was chaired by Keith Blackwell, who, by the way, did a masterful job in putting the report together on behalf of the committee and really worked hard on that report. Their preliminary report, which y'all might recall, this covered 3 different topics. It was CLE, the bar, admission to the bar, and then the third category was like military spouse rule, admission on motion, just some kind of other things. It's a very long report. I think it's like 150 plus pages. So, pick the parts maybe that you want to examine closely. But that is open and available for review now. And the easiest way to find it, I had a hard time finding it on the Supreme Court website, but I could find it easily on the CJCP website. If you go to the Chief Justice Commission on Professionalism website, there you'll see click here for the report. And you will also see on there, and I implore you to do this, that there's a place where you can send comments. And the court is interested in the public's comments. And I think the comment period is open until the end of this month. So please go to the CJCP website, take a look at that. If you have any comments, please make them. And it could be just a general comment about, CLE. You think there should be more hours required or whatever your comments are. It doesn't have to be specifically about what's in the report. So I'd ask you to please do that. The other things that are going on or that have been going on is we went to the Southern Conference of Bar Presidents in October. And that was very well attended, and it was a very nice meeting. And at the end of, or the beginning of February, we'll attend the National Conference of Bar Presidents. So I mentioned those 2 things only to let you know that your State Bar of Georgia is participating in these organizations, but more importantly, that I don't want to sound braggy, but we don't always learn as much as some other states do because we're really doing well. We are kind of, I'm not gonna say cutting edge, that's a little too crazy for Georgia, but we're doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing. So there's a lot of comfort in knowing that we are really doing very well in comparison to the and we're doing just as well as any other state. I'll put it like that. The last thing I wanted to mention, and I'll turn over the mic, is y'all may recall that in the fall, my mother passed away, and I just wanted to take a moment and thank everybody who reached out with a phone call, a text, beautiful flowers, handwritten notes, and it really meant a lot to me. And I will also tell you that it was very important for me during the healing process to hear from y'all. So thank you very much for that. And those will conclude the president's remarks. Thank y'all. I guess
Good morning. As this meeting comes to its end, I realize that I'm the only thing standing between you and the celebration in Athens, so go Dogs. Good news at this point in our fiscal cycle, so to speak, there's really not a whole lot going on. The best news that we have to report is that we received what auditors refer to as an clean audit opinion, unqualified opinion. So our financials were in good shape for our prior fiscal year that ended June 30th. You can get a copy of that auditor's report should you have trouble sleeping, and you can read all about our clean financial report. Ron and his team have finished the financials for the month of November, and there's really no significant variations or surprises there. The actual statements are on page 172 of the board book. You can find budget variances over $1,000 on page 172 and 173. I really only mention that because we have a $17 million budget. And in my opinion, at least $1,000 variance is kind of granular. So it used to be 500. I will continue my crusade to increase that until we get to $5,000 or $10,000. If you'd like to discuss that, please let me know, but you may see something before the board or the executive committee, and we may continue our march to 2,500 as we go. The financials are in there, so I'm gonna kind of make this a written report. Martin, I know that you have questions about the unallocated cash, and I have coordinated with Mr. Elmore, who is going to talk about the unallocated cash and how we have it. We're coming up a plan to uncover or to be ready for unanticipated costs, non-budgeted items, things that aren't planned, et cetera. We also had a discussion that was somewhat financial. The last time I spoke with you, we had an agenda item concerning the costs of virtual meeting attendance and kind of how we do meetings. I have confirmed with Ron, the overwhelming thing that I heard was that we need more data. And so I have confirmed with Ron that they continue to gather data, and we're just going to continue to see how that goes. As you can see, and as we've experienced with some of the delays in this meeting, maybe there are other costs to full virtual participation than just the financials. So that may be something to consider. And with that, I'm going to try and sit down unless somebody has questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivy. Damon, would you give us your executive director's report, please?
Thank you, Sally. Justice Peterson and the other members of the court I see around here, members of the board. Friends, I rise to provide a general report on the operations of the bar. My report will cover 4 parts. So after a general overview of our work, I'll provide a brief update on our office in Savannah. And then you will also hear about current progress on the creation of a Center for Lawyer Well-Being. And then part 4 will be the core part of the report. And that'll be an update on our analysis related to work focused on unallocated cash. For that part of the report, I'll refer to page 180 and then pages 188 to 192 of the board book. So let's talk about operations. Overall, our operations remain strong. All of our departments are performing in an efficient and right manner designed to support our members, match our mission, and improve the quality of legal services. In recent reports and throughout the latter part of 2022, we pay particular attention to our ICLE department, and I can report generally that that department is performing well. For our members, we see quality programming, strong attendance, and array of seminar options. In the department, we see a high level of strategic thought and planning, renewed stakeholder engagement, and improved customer service and communication. In fact, because of effort and intention and new leadership in the work of the team, we find it to be in a really solid place. So going forward, any updates related to the work in that department will only be as part of a broader report or in the event that there are extraordinary circumstances. Coastal Georgia. So we have moved our office in Savannah. Our office manager, Kendall Harville, who has been around today, if you haven't seen her, recently reported that we've already seen a significant uptick in visits and traffic into the space by members. And that's largely in part because of location, access, and the free parking. Those were all essential elements of the search process. And so as you can see on page 225 of the board book, use of space ticked up in the 3rd and 4th quarters of 2022 before our move in the month of March. And we anticipate an increase to that use now that we are set and matters and events rise. But we are ready. We are ready. And we're grateful to the many that supported us throughout this process with input and advice. That includes members of the bar committee. It includes members of the Eastern Circuit delegation that visited as part of a final inspection process. All of that input was valuable and we are grateful. So make it a point to stop by and say hello. On the Center for Lawyer Wellbeing, as it relates to that work connected, there's only a general update. We are grateful to the passionate members of this body that are supporting that work. And none of the work connected to wellness or well-being or resilience could be done without additional volunteers rolling up their sleeves on our committees, supporting LAP or the Lawyers Helpline or the Suicide Prevention and Awareness or Solace or any of the other valuable resources provided for our members. Likewise, we also appreciate our partnership with our EAP provider and have recently met with them to hear about increased usage in that member benefit. We're beyond grateful to Paula and Bill in the Office of the General Counsel related to work on formation documents for the center. So you can see a lot is really happening there, but we still have some work to do, on processes to make clear related to matters of funding, administrative support, and scope. So we don't have a final report or recommendation here, but we are working to make sure that that will occur by the time of the annual meeting. Now, allow me to turn your attention to the work being done on the matter of unallocated cash. So in other words, that cash not designated or restricted to a specific use, not allocated for any accounts payable or accrued operating or other expenses or otherwise circumscribed. I'm aware that this is not a simple matter to compress into a brief report. I am also aware and want you to know that we're still doing work and talking about it and evaluating everything. So if there are conclusions or questions at the conclusion of this overview, I'll stay around in the room until we're kicked out, or I don't feel like answering questions anymore. But I'll also be around throughout. And I always, here on this matter or anything else, invite you to call me or email me. This is a project that you all asked us to undertake, and we heard that call. Often we are left analyzing use and proper levels of unallocated cash or reserves for the sake of discussion. That amount, that near current amount, is outlined in your board book at page 180. You'll see $9,454,230 for the period ending October 31st, 2022. As Ivy mentioned, November and year-end reports are near complete. We've worked to provide information to the finance and executive committees that answers the question of what a recommended reserve level of cash resources should be. We've worked to provide information to the finance and executive committees that answers the question of what a recommended use of those resources should be. I wanted to say I also appreciate the support of our court liaisons too for their support and initial analysis as part of this process. All of it is an ongoing broad review that'll go back to Finance Committee for additional evaluation and analysis, and subsequently Executive Committee and back to this board for a final report. So there is no recommendation for action here, only a brief summary of our research that's laid out in 4 parts. First part, 1, with the assistance of our audit partners, we've gathered data and evaluated an appropriate reserve level based upon similarly situated bar organizations and generally accepted accounting principles. So that number, $4,524,459, is on page 188. Additionally, there is an analysis of current and immediate operations project for which the use of unallocated cash will prove essential. That includes unanticipated and unbudgeted expenses connected to the move in the coastal Georgia office, a need to increase our litigation reserves, a long overdue and necessary revamp to the bar's website, and a set aside or move away is a better word for potential payment of insurance deductibles and those expenses. At page 189, we outline a list of current and immediate conference center needs for which the use of unallocated cash will prove essential. That includes inflationary and additional expenses related to security personnel, expenses related to equipment repair, and expenses necessary for improvements to audio, visual, and technical equipment and capabilities, chiefly for our conference center. It comes as no surprise, and we've seen this morning that that method and manner of conducting seminars and meetings has changed. And we know that many of you have strongly encouraged those hybrid capabilities, particularly for those types of meetings, and it remains an option. And that is one step to ensuring that success. So it's these unanticipated costs, non-budgeted items or unplanned occurrences for which we try and prepare, but may and have and don't want to or want to avoid facing an assessment or other charge on our revenue. At page 190, we outline a list of current and immediate expenses for 104 Marietta Street that are not connected to systems or engineering and for which the use of unallocated cash may prove essential. That includes incurred expenses for necessary repairs in the engineering study, a general estimate of cost to convert available space on the 6th floor. We've been talking about a hoteling or WeWork concept, temporary office space for our members, an additional investment into security upgrades for the safety and protection of our members, tenants, visitors, and overdue upgrades to some of our common area facilities. For the sake of a complete analysis and discussion, we've also listed costs connected with preparing the 5th floor for use and occupancy. This continues to remain only a slightly likely option, but insofar as it will potentially produce revenue or be in a better position for available use, this is the type of investment that will prove essential. So fourth part, finally, at page 191, we outline a list of eventual expenses associated with the building as a result of an engineering and structural analysis conducted and for which the use of unallocated cash may prove essential. Such a study had not been previously commissioned since we moved into the building. And let me be clear, it is a fantastic place for our members. It serves us well, and securing the spot was an amazing feat. There is no doubt about that. But the reality is, as well built as it was, Father Time and Mother Nature are undefeated. And we want to be sure we are ahead of the process in the event of needed repair. So page 191 provides a summary of the 20+ page report on the matters and issues we need to remain aware of. And there's no particular order or rank of need. However, we've slightly ranked at least the top 4 matters that we believe are imminent and necessary to address, including an operating system that runs on something slightly more advanced than Windows XP, electrical circuit breaker and switch replacements to prevent switch and patchwork repairs that we are conducting now, removal and replacement of single pane windows chiefly along the south side of the building, those types of repair. And so let me be clear again, this is a magnificent building. And what's more important is that we have an outstanding partnership, at least on the building maintenance side, with Cushman and Wakefield through Steve Hallstrom. He's on top of what needs to be done for our systems. But when it rains, it literally pours sometimes. And so as you can see, some systems and are operating on platforms that don't exist anymore. But like so many other parts of this process, we are just grateful to the members of the finance and the executive committees that were able to make the time to tour the building with us. As we explored that space on the 6th floor, we built an understanding of the difficulty accessing drain and other pipes throughout the building. We evaluated recent repairs connected with windows on the north side and the roof. We walked the areas of potential rentable space that exists. We examined what the impact of the progress of the South Downtown development will have on the future operation. And so all of that has been helpful throughout the process. But here's where we stand right now. We simply want to be sure that we are making best use of the unallocated cash. And more important than that, we don't want to find ourselves in a dire situation going forward. Martin, we have no plans to spend all of our resources right now, but we also want to avoid a situation where we would have to significantly increase the revenue. I'll say this, going through this exercise has allowed us the opportunity to fully be informed, the opportunity to make you fully informed, and really the opportunity to be better fiscal managers or managers of the fiscal resources entrusted to us. And I genuinely appreciate the hard work and support of not only these leaders throughout the process, but also Paula, Sarah, Ron, and the others who've really done some heavy lift throughout this process. So thank you. Thank you for allowing us to do the work that we do. Thanks to the liaisons for their valuable partnership. Thank you to all of our volunteer leaders again for their work and support, especially Sally, including this week. She engaged with our departments, participated in all the meetings, and pored over this report with us to be sure that we didn't miss out on any details or data. And then most important to me, thanks to the full team and staff at 104 Marietta Street, 7402 Hodgson Memorial Drive in Savannah, and 244 East Second Street in Tifton for their hard work and passionate dedication, and especially our teams in meetings and communications for their work and effort throughout this event. I'll answer questions now or be around a little later on. Oh, Martin.
I know it's shot.
I'm sorry, Martin.
That's
Excuse,
really
first of
something
all,
that I'm
sorry.
picking up, but no,
Bingo, Ivy.
I don't, yeah. I know that, well, I heard there was a bet and it was even money. So that part wasn't able to, what I was going to talk about, I thought was a more interesting parlay. So, two things I just want to say. Number one, please, is it in this bar book, in this bench book, the report,
It is, yeah, there's a summary report.
I know we got it separately, but I encourage all of you to please take the time to read that study that was done that lists out all those things for the building that need to be done. I can't tell you how impressed it is when you look through that at the work that Ron and Damon and Sarah have done to put into that report that came into it, and the work they did with the accounting people to kind of let us know what other bars have been doing. It's really, really important. It identifies a ton of things that are going to need to be fixed in the bar. Just like in your home, you know that your roof is going to need to be replaced every 20 years or something. You know, if there's a pipe that busts, that has to be replaced right away. So you can see in our list there that there's some stuff that's old that might need to be replaced sooner. We're going to be able to make a list of that, but all of that stuff doesn't need to be replaced this year. A lot of it can be pushed back. Like Damon said, it's not something we have to do right away. But I look at that because there are some things in there that I think we need to start budgeting for and kind of keeping an eye on spending money to do. That's number one. The second thing I really want to point out is we've always kept talking about this over the last 15 years, this idea of emergency fund on the operational side, not the bar center side, on the operational side, that we have to have this money for the emergency that's going to come up. And what you see in that study is that there's not really an emergency we expect to come up on the operational side. The things that they've looked into and that we're having to talk about is increasing the litigation reserve for stuff that might come up that costs us a lot of money. And now really looking at the cybersecurity insurance that the insurance companies are getting out of providing that insurance, or they're increasing the deductibles tremendously. So that might be something. We had insurance last year that covered it, and I think it was $1 million total they paid.
A little bit more than that, yeah. 5 was the coverage levels, but they paid.
But our insurance kicked in about $1 million to cover that. So if we don't have that insurance in the future, then that's $1 million that we're going to have to know, that we're going to have to pay for to get our system back going and everything. So those are two legitimate things, but there's no other emergency that's coming up that I think that's there. So that aspect of it, we don't need to worry about. But I do still think while Damon's saying, yeah, that wish list is more than $9 million, that wish list is over the next 15 years, probably. I do think there's money there that we've got to keep an eye on that needs to be going back to the members in some fashion, whether that's, towards the client security, a one-time thing on the client security fund, your $15 a year, or it's not increasing dues because we don't need to increase them. We're going to use that reserve for that on a one-time thing for a year. I think that's important to keep in mind. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. And you reminded me of two things. First, one that Ivy and Brittany Browning suggested. I invite anybody to come down to 104 Marietta Street and see the same things that we said. I will set a few days aside, maybe a tour Tuesday or something like that, so I don't have 160 people that want to come in. But we are always excited to show you the building and show off the building and the things that are outlined in this report, or things that you might not have seen before. And Martin, you're absolutely right. There are emergency situations, but I think our concern or analysis are really those unexpected things. You may see next month, as an example, in order to keep Georgia Legal Services or other people as tenants, there are tenant improvement allowances that need to be met in order for rehab or refurbishment to the spaces, and in order to make sure that those happen timely. Those are unanticipated or unbudgeted matters that wouldn't fall into an emergency category, but certainly would fall into something that needs to be addressed. So, but you're right. Thank you. Are you coming up?
I'll rise to inquire about the status of any discussions about continuing the virtual or absentee portion of these meetings and the costs associated with not doing so or
Yeah.
with continuing to do so.
Yeah, thank you. Sally, I've got. Yeah, as Ivy mentioned, there's still an ongoing assessment and analysis. When we had that first report, we were looking at data year over year that was not, it was more Gala apples to Fiji apples and not direct apples. So what we are doing is pure data year over year, post-COVID analysis that's connected to it and making sure we have the matched data. What we are doing instead are making changes or addressing costs that might happen as it relates to audiovisual providers or other people that are connected to it. We've switched polling platforms, hoping that that might address some of our issues, but there's still a data gathering process.
Well, it's my recollection that data really was focused on the financial part of continuing it. I think the larger discussion needs to be had about whether, as a policy, it's a good idea.
Yes.
Would you like to give us your opinion, John?
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Damon, for all the hard work that I know went into not only preparing that report, but the work that you reported on. So thank you very much for your always good work. Younger Lawyers Division, Ron Daniels.
Good morning, everybody. I have a PowerPoint. I promise it's not nearly as long as you might expect with me in a PowerPoint. Y'all are a tough crowd. You know, there are 4 lights up here. So I started out with 3 points, but there's 4 lights. I have 4 points. I will be brief, I promise. I know you all have somewhere to be. The 4 lights is a reference to Star Trek, if you don't get it. Our full report's on page 193. The first thing I want to highlight is the work the division has been doing. Even this morning, you've already heard our Leadership Academy is doing a service project down the road. Our Women in the Profession Committee is also hosting an ABLF Saturday Lawyer this morning. So we are doing service work. We're also putting on really great programming. Several of y'all attended our CLE yesterday. We had a packed house. We had over 70 people in the room. We had Stony Burt from In the Red Clay podcast. We also had a panel on how podcasts are affecting criminal law and criminal investigations. People seem to really enjoy it, get good information. I'm going to move to our next big event, which is our signature fundraiser. If we could go to the next slide. Our signature fundraiser is going to be on March 4th in Macon, Georgia. It's benefiting Georgia Legal Services Program and Middle Georgia Justice, both programs that work to increase or decrease that gap where we're not getting services to people who can't otherwise afford legal services. We could go to the 2 next slides. We're going to skip over one because I've already talked about it. We have this great QR code. Please buy a ticket. This is not an event for just young lawyers to show up to. It's an event for anybody who wants to show up, have a good time, listen to some 40s music, have some good hors d'oeuvres, an open bar. Scan the QR code. If you need me to send you an email, I will. If you don't need me to send you an email, we probably will anyway. So please come. We'll go to the next slide. I want to mention the Good Lawyer podcast. We've gotten a great response for the Good Lawyer podcast. We continue to publish episodes. We just had a bonus episode with Mr. Ivy Cadle. Bill Gentry's been on episode. Amanda Heath has been on episode. We are continuing to put out good episodes. We continue to get good feedback. We could go to the next slide. We now have a web page for the Good Lawyer on the YLD page. Please go and listen. I think you will get something out of it. I certainly have asking questions for the first 9 or 10 episodes. I'm very happy to turn over the hosting duties because I don't like listening myself asking questions when I'm listening back to these things. And I know most people don't like listening to me talk anyway. The fourth thing I wanted to mention, because I know where everybody actually wants to be this morning, is I had a small wager with the president of Louisiana Young Lawyers Division about the SEC championship game. She lost, so we got $100 donated to our Toys for Tots program. But more importantly, Monday, she was a very good sport and wore a JT Daniels jersey all day long. And that is my report. I encourage you to read our written report. I do want to take a moment of personal privilege and tell everybody, while I do love Sherry, watch what you say about Dodge County when I'm up here, okay? Thank y'all. Have a good day. Go Dog.
Thank you very much for that report, Ron. That was great. Carlise, are you, okay. Next I'll call on Carlise Greer to give the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism report.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. It is always an honor to be back with you, my colleagues, my former fellow Board of Governors members. It's on days like this when you get to vote for great people that I miss being a member of the board. But I'm thrilled to be here today in my current capacity as the Executive Director of the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism. I want to start by thanking, of course, our chair, Chief Justice Boggs, for his leadership. And I want to thank President Sally Akins for making professionalism a hallmark of her platform this year. And as Sally mentioned, we do have a CLE coming up. You see the date and the time. It's Wednesday, February 22nd. It will be in Atlanta at the State Bar of Georgia. We're going to start off with a box lunch at 11:15. We will have our CLE. And then we will have a beer, wine, heavy hors d'oeuvre reception following that. I got a question. Thank you, Past President Don Jones. How do you register? So I have added that to the commission's homepage. It was up, but it wasn't on our homepage. So you will now find on our homepage, cjcpga.org, how to register. It may sound odd, but we believe that there is value, and Sally really wants people to come in person. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sally, but that's one of the things that she told me. So, so you will see that in-person attendance is $25 and the webcast is $50. Ironically, we've had people to register already, and we've had more webcast attendance than in person, even though in person is cheaper. But yes, you are reading that correctly. We encourage you to attend in person. I want to thank the planning committee that's been working on this. Rebecca Grice. Rebecca, are you still in here? She is the chair of the commission's CLE committee, and also on the committee with her are Pat Longan, Molly Gillis, and Audra Seymour and Judge Russ McClellan. So we have a great planning team that has been working on this under the leadership of Rebecca. I just get to stand up here and talk about it, but I want to thank our planning team. As Sally said, we'll have some members from the Supreme Court join us in various roles throughout the day. And we also have several members of the Board of Governors. I'm not going to call names because, of course, being seasoned, I would forget someone, but I'm very grateful to everyone, both in Atlanta and outside Atlanta. We have several folks from outside of Atlanta, in addition to Sally, that have committed to come join us on that day. So please register, preferably in person, $25. And that covers your lunch, your CLE credits, 4 hours. It's approved already for 4 hours of CLE, including 2 hours of professionalism, one for 2023 and one for 2024, because I know everybody in the room is up to date on their CLE. And $50 if you do want to join us by web. Next, the Benham Awards will be taking place on March 2nd. They will be at the Nathan Deal Judicial Center this year, and we thank the court for hosting us there for the Benham Awards. If I could have the next slide, that will just show the date for the Benham Awards. Tentative time is 5:30 to 9. I'm still finalizing some plans, but it's going to be in that time frame. And if I could have the next slide, you will see this year's award recipients for the Benham Awards, and we look forward to honoring them. Justice Benham has already said that he will be able to join us. We don't have registration up yet for the Benham Awards, but look for more details. And last, certainly not least, I want to take a moment, both on behalf of the commission and also as a point of personal privilege, to just honor and acknowledge our former commission member, Judge Clyde Reese, who passed unexpectedly in December. Judge Reese was a wonderful commission member who served and worked for us, helping us with our CLE. He was instrumental in our suicide awareness program a couple of years ago, and we will miss his service. And I just want to publicly thank and acknowledge Judge Reese for his professionalism and his service to our commission. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Carlise, and thank you for acknowledging Judge Reese. Probably what I should have done that, but I appreciate you doing that. The next thing we have is you will see the written reports that are provided in your board book. So I recommend those to y'all. The next thing I'd like to ask is if there is any old business that needs to come before the body. Any new business? Any announcements? Oh, I have one. I forgot to mention during my remarks, I can't take credit for this, but the other thing on professionalism, I guess y'all realized that we did approve the legislature's, sending to the legislature the request to make April legal professionalism month. So that's also, I'm not going to take credit for it. I'm kind of, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, I had nothing to do with it. But anyway, that's another little click for the professionalism stuff this year that again, I really didn't have anything to do with. The other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to give a very big thanks to Gaki Kasamba and Danielle for putting all of this together. It looks like, you know, this just happens, but it doesn't just happen without their hard work. And also Jennifer and Sarah, everybody that worked so hard to make us have a nice time and to make it look like it just all of a sudden fell into place, but that's not the way it went. Is there any reason to go into executive session? I didn't think so. All right. The next thing it says here, are there any remarks, Q&A, comments or suggestions? John, you got anything else on your minds? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I didn't pull against them, but you know, I'm a Florida Gator, but I can't really say it up here. I can't. I congratulate y'all all from the bottom of my heart, but I just can't say that. Yeah, from the true bottom. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we will adjourn. Thank y'all for being here.